Hello everyone, I am Tacet, and today I'm going to be going over the Gems of War Swamp Things event, in which the Swamp Rat is added to the game, and gosh, do we have a lot coming in this week. So let's start getting into it. First off, of course, the Glory Troop. Pretty standard, pretty not noteworthy at all. Comes in with brown purple arcanes. It ends up doing true damage to the last enemy with a 50% chance to deal the same amount of true damage to the second to last enemy, and then it ends up submerging itself. It does have 75% mana start, so it does get to do this pretty quick, but overall is pretty much going to be completely useless, and you're never really going to be picking this up for anything. It's just not going to be strong enough compared to other true damage options, and while it is an okay true damage for its rarity level, it's just overall just not a good one compared to all the other options that exist within the game. So overall, definitely worth skipping, other than just forgetting it for kingdom upgrades. And we can actually get the Kingdom of Mist of Scales, the event week kingdom, to 19 stars this week, which would be pretty cool. It is currently only 18 starable, but however, we are getting a new pet on Wednesday, and once that pet comes out, it will technically be 19 stars, tied at the highest starred kingdom in the game. So that'd be pretty cool. Other than that, we have a ton of other things. Event Key Drop Table has the new Basilisk troop, so we'll be going over some themes shortly that go over this new thing, but it's basically a really high true damaging option, mostly to be used for Guild Wars, Brown, and Blue days, though it could maybe potentially be incorporated into PvP. Now, overall, it's a pretty slow option, but it's decently safe and has a nice one-shot on it. And other than that, Spring Imp is no longer in the drop table. However, Summer Imp is. So in the Glory Gem Guild and VIP chest drop table for the next 2 months, all of June and all of July, you'll be able to get the Summer Imp. This thing is pretty much completely useless. However, if you want to get it for completionist purposes, it is within the drop tables. Best time to try to get it is, of course, whenever a new mythic comes out, like this Friday, and just hope that you randomly get one as you're trying to get the new mythic. So yeah, I would wait till Friday to try to get that at the earliest, as we do have a new mythic then. Other than that, we do have 10% to all Mist of Scales and 10% to all Nagas, which is 20% for almost entirety of Mist of Scales, which would be pretty useful for a couple events that are going on throughout this week, mostly Thursday with the Assassin class. And if you so choose, you can just plop the rat onto your team to gain an additional 400 gold for PvP and Explore. This is pretty much only good if you're going to be doing quick kill with it, as the troop itself will not really be casted. You're simply just going to be using it for the additional 400 gold gain that ends up giving you. So, event key drop table. So this is pretty noteworthy this week. Of course, as I mentioned, we have the new Basilisk. Everything that is available in the drop table is right over here. If we go over to Mist of Scales, as is a Mist of Scales event week. And if you just click show all, if you don't already have everything, it'll end up showing every single thing that is available here. The only 4 that are not available within this current drop table are the ones that are from Dark Pits. Anything that's marked with Dark Pits is not obtainable through Event Key drop table. You would have to get them instead from the Dark Pits portal in the Underworld. But aside from that, every other thing that you end up seeing here is available in Event Key drop table. There aren't too many good things, except for mainly 2, and they're unfortunately like the highest rarity 2. And that is mainly Yali and, of course, the new Basilisk that just ended up coming out into the game. So let's go over to Basilisk first, since this is the new thing. So this is a brown-blue, very similar mechanically to how Vash works, just in a different angle. It's a little bit higher of a mana cost at 17. But same coloration, ends up doing some true damage to an enemy, and if the enemy is poisoned, which generally you will not use the side of the mechanic, but if they're poisoned, you'll end up doing double damage. However, the side that you will generally be using is the other side, where it does true damage again, but it will end up doing double if they are stunned. So this is pretty noteworthy because his final trait is pretty decent. It ends up stunning a random enemy when matching brown gems. This is going to be really, really useful because not only would you be possibly using Titan or a similar hero class that will constantly gain barrier every single brown, but there's also another troop that does a similar mechanic, Vash'Dagon, a mythic, where you can end up using it so whenever you take a brown, you'll both curse and stun, basically disabling out every possible trait that the enemy has, and it will hit through things like Impervious. So it's going to be pretty decent in combination, since you'll be able to get 3 different valued things for simply taking a brown. So has a lot of potential going forward as far as what this will potentially be used with brown synergies. But one nice thing about this amount of true damage is, given that you have stun, you're generally going to be hitting double damage on the second one. The first one you're probably not going to be in most situations. However, doing basically triple damage, or 3 hits essentially of his true damage in most situations will be enough for you to secure a kill. This is going to be very good in a context like Guild War. So instead of a Vash, where you'll end up using as a stunning option, they'll end up doing a double mana drain and a double true damage poke, but not secure a kill. This will be a little bit different in that it doesn't get to mana drain, but it does get to completely kill out one option. Whenever you're fighting something that's around similar stats to you, you're generally generally going to be able to kill anything within that range with that triple damage. 99 true damage, like for example, how much I can hit right now, is pretty much killing anything around my level range for the most part with that amount of true damage. It might not here or there. Of course, you can set more magic if it is outside of range. Also, in the case of something like Guild Wars, you know ahead of time what your battle is, so you can see if it is worth or not worth using a Basilisk for a given battle. But overall, I feel like this will mostly be used as a Guild War utility troop, where it's going to be used occasionally on brown and blue Guild War days, essentially to help you win the battle just a little bit smoother. That's pretty much the furthest its purpose is going to go. I feel like in PvP it's going to be a little bit too slow compared to other options. In every other situation, it won't have enough damage to actually kill since it doesn't upscale that well. So overall, I feel like this is mostly just going to be a Guild War option, though that's pretty good given that we have Guild Wars this week, so you'll be able to use it for that. Other than that, other things that exist within this kingdom include Reality. Reality is really good with Scorpius for farming Explore 12, particularly in Urskea, since you can use the 4 times poison that she has into Scorpius's double kill off of poison, and then just double kill to double kill. Other than that, she's not really used for much, and she's not excessively high priority to get. However, if you want another Explore 12 option, or if you don't have too many at the moment, is worth considering if you already own a Scorpius. Other than that, the only other thing that's somewhat okay from here, I guess, is the Marilith. And Marilith, pretty good for mana accumulation, ends up destroying a lot of gems since it gets a full amount based on whatever its magic is, and of course the higher magic the better this is. If you have at least 32 destroy, you'll technically be getting more value than that of an explosion, if you have like 33 plus, so end up getting a lot of value, especially with 20% extra this week. And also has a fire link, which sometimes you end up using 3 of them together in order to rush up her mana due to the amount of red that you would end up getting there. So even if you don't surge, you'd get full mana simply by taking 2 reds, and you can kind of mana generate like crazy for something like the Assassin event this Thursday. Ends up working out pretty decent. Not the greatest of troops, but it has her utility purposes here and there. And other than that, maybe a Tapon. It's not used as much compared to the fact that we got a better option recently that has a red storm attached to it. However, he does get to convert away brown to red, mostly used these days as a brown Guild War counter, which is something else you have to watch out for Basilisk, which might make it actually better on blue day compared to brown. If you are using on a brown Guild War day, there are plenty of troops that will hard counter brown. However, if you're on a blue Guild War day, it is very unlikely the enemy will have a hard counter to brown. Still possible, but a lot less likely compared to brown day, of course. So it might be more towards a blue Guild War kind of thing, but it might still have its applicable uses in brown. You just have to, again, see what the enemy team is using before you end up using it as a option. Anyways, so, of course, we got Guild Wars this week. As far as other things that we have going on this week, we have ourselves Tuesday, we have Fang Moor, so anything related to that, you'll be able to go get the faction up if you so choose. Wednesday, we're getting a pretty noteworthy pet in that it's going to be a Mists of Scales pet. This isn't really that good for bonus, since very rarely are you going to be using a team that uses like 3 or 4 Mists of Scales, though you do get a bonus for 2 as well, but it won't be much of a bonus. But very rarely would you be doing that. However, the main relevancy is more so to what I mentioned earlier, in that it is possible to 19-star Mists of Scales, and you'll be able to get that if you happen to have or, you know, all the other requirements leading up to that point. But it is possible, as of the pet coming out on Wednesday, to be able to go get that to 19, which will be tied at the highest. I believe there's 2 now at 19, 2 or 3. Anyways, other than that, this Thursday we're going to be having the Assassin class event. So this will end up being an okay hero class. It has 10% instant kill onto the last slot whenever it ends up taking a skull, which of course is actually pretty good compared to other skull spammers because you get to distribute the damage a little bit better. You get to hit the first slot with a bunch of skull spam and then trigger a 10% that will also kill out the last slot. Unlike something like Archer, while it does have a higher chance of instant killing, it's applying it to the first slot and it's not really going to be distributing it as well. Other than that, this Friday, we're going to be getting 2 things. We're going to be getting a new mythic coming into the game. It is very similar to all of the trolls in the game, where it basically doubles and does an additional 3 to the colors. However, it has double the mana cost. However, the thing that makes it unique is that it gets to target any color. It seems like it's going to have a little bit too high of a mana cost to really be that viable, though, especially with the traits that it has. Seems like it's going to be rather underwhelming compared to just using the troll that you specifically want instead, especially something like Forest Troll, being it with how strong that it is with its entangle and decent score reduction. Other than that, we're also going to be getting a new faction coming out this Friday, so we'll be able to look forward to that. It's for Blade of Land, so if you happen to have a Blade of Land mythic but don't happen to have it at 10-star yet, it'll be a lot easier to try to reach 10-star for Blade of Lands. Anyways, next thing, so Soulforge. Soulforge this week, we do not have anything too enticing for the most part. We do have Aquaticus. Aquaticus, I feel like, is rather underwhelming. Even though it does get to do quite a bit of things with its ability, having quite a bit of explosion, being able to hit a lot of light splash damage. I don't feel like it has as many usages compared to the other Infernus-like troops. It does have the best submerge in game, being able to do that 4 times submerge, but very, very rarely is this used that often, as most teams do not run full AoE in the current state of the game, because just the presence of Submerge has made them a lot less viable. The only time you kind of see it is maybe with like a Yagwe Queen of Tanya, but even then the Yagwe just bypasses it, even though the Queen of Tanya would be countered. There's still obviously instances of it here or there in the game, but very rarely do you see a full team just running only AoE and nothing else as their options, or only split damage. Normally it's a combination of factors, and very rarely would you just bring out a 4-time Submerge like that, so she doesn't get too much usage. If you are using her almost more so for her ability than technically the Submerge, which is a main aspect of her. And other than that, not really much to mention. Everything else is pretty average. Maybe pick up Divine Ishbala, though in the current state of the game, I feel like she's been used a lot less. I really wish they would just buff her back up to 50% like she used to be, but she's still used for Divine Ishbala Quillen combo. There's still a few Divine teams here or there that use her. She's really good in some of the Rope Dart Divine teams as well. But overall, not used for as wide of a range of teams. Just like a really few specific skull spam, I feel like. And that's about it, since she's one of the Mana Start troops that actually have a mana that has a skull spam attached to it, which ends up making it always pretty decent. But I still wish they would raise it back to 50%. Anyways, pretty much worth skipping on all the troops. As far as weapons, somewhat worth skipping on. However, if you are going to go for one, there's Medusa Tome and Cobra's Curse. I would go for Cobra's Curse, and the main reason for this is, for one, it counts as Naga instead of Mr. Scales, so it has a little bit of a wider range, since Mr. Scales is pretty much all Nagas, and then some of the Nagas that are outside of Mr. Scales, you'll still be able to use. However, the main relevant thing about this is it uses green mana, and it creates green mana. It's one of the few weapons that are like this, where one of the mana that it creates is also one of the mana that it uses, so you'll be able to feed its mana right back into it. For this reason, it is one of the better weapons. Very rarely does this get used, though, just due to the lack of Naga options that exist within the game. But of course, as more options come into the game, it would become increasingly more viable. So of these two weapons, you would want to consider the Cobra's Curse rather than the Medusa's Tome, as Cobra's Curse will be stronger if you had to choose between just one or the other. Overall, they're probably both worth skipping, but if you're going to get one, get Cobra's Curse. Anyway, so that's all the things. Let's go over some teams now. So we're probably going to be showing actually quite a few of these, but first off, we're going to be starting off with Brown Basilisk. So as I mentioned earlier, one rather interesting thing that we can do is utilize a bunch of different effects that take place whenever we end up taking Brown. So here we have a really, really wide range of things that will be utilizing the Brown. Every single time we take a Brown, we will gain a barrier on our hero. We will gain from Rock Solid. We will gain a stun onto a random enemy, and we will gain a curse onto a random enemy. So that is quite a bit of value, and given that we have Mountain Crusher, we're going to be able to get a lot more Brown very quick. So we'll simply just take a Brown, already got another Brown, and double check to see if we have anything that we can take here. Otherwise, we will just go and Mountain Crusher it down. So here we'll end up getting a lot of mana accumulation. Unfortunately, we don't hit any more Browns, nor can we end up really taking any for free. So we'll probably just go for an Irongut here. One thing I did forget to do right here, though hopefully it doesn't play too big a role, is we do have the capability of Devouring. However, you generally want to be using additional attack. The best way to do this is to use Seasoned Metals, since they have yet to buff Arachnia to be a higher attack value. So Seasons is the way to go if you want to have higher attack, since you also gain additional HP and armor, and Arachnia currently has the same amount of attack gain as a Seasons, so you might as well just use Seasons for now. However, one thing that you may notice here is we have a bunch of stun curses. So basically this makes it so if they would have had any kind of immunities to stun, that the curse would have been able to go and remove it, and basically just apply stun on it. So none of them will be able to do any of your traits. They won't be able to have those explosions, won't be able to have that ice storm every single turn, stuff like that. So you won't even be able to counter our brown storm right now. Given that factor, I do actually want to kill that out, and luckily we do get the Devour, even though we didn't have the extra attack. So let's go for that. Obviously we'll want to take brown, get everything rolling again. We get even more disable, take even more brown, because why not? Get even more curse and stun. Somehow we still have not. Oh, we were frozen on it though. Fail. Still gotta watch out for freeze. So let's keep devouring. Let's kill out the hero now, and we have 100 attack, so we have a 100% chance that we'll end up getting it there. As you can see there, the Basilisk did end up getting its full mana. Now we have everything at full mana, so we just go for another kill. However, I'm going to do it this way. So, of course, we have Basilisk. Basilisk ends up doing the double damage on its second poke, which I guess we won't really be able to see that too much here because he has much lower stats than us right now. However, it does end up applying double damage to that other poke, basically applying 3 41s to it in one single upfront instance, and then the stun one. One pretty relevant thing about the order in which it does it in, it does do the poison hit before the stun hit, and given that you're going to be easily have a stun option whenever you're doing this, since the stun is attached to the Basilisk itself, if the enemy happens to have barrier barrier, you'll actually be able to counter that a little bit, because the first hit will be the poison hit, which more often than not will be for base damage, just the 41 rather than for 82, you know, rather than double. So your weaker hit will basically get rid of the barrier, and then your stronger hit will be able to go and hopefully kill them, or at least do a substantial amount of damage. So really nice on that order right there. Also, just even the fact that they're poisoned would probably be able to remove their barrier if you happen to be using poison with it. Not sure if you really would. None of these teams actually do end up using poison with it that I'm showing right now. Just kind of built some, we will be messing around with it probably a little bit more later this week. But for now, I just kind of showed 2 Guild War 1s, given that this is a Guild War week. So here we have a pure blue team, kind of structured rather similarly, where we're basically going to be running down into a brown spam. In this case, we're using an Apothecary for that, actually with no hero, surprisingly, mostly because Champion of Anu is basically serving that role for us. Gives 1 stat to all of our allies per turn. You can end up using a hero there as alternative if you don't have that mythic, but basically what we're going to be using here is using that buff in order to kind of get things rolling. We do ideally, in this kind of team composition, want to be taking as many greens as we can. This team is a little bit more green dependent, oddly enough, even though it's actually a blue team, and that's mostly because we need to get Apothecary going. But for now, we'll go and just kind of keep swiping mana here and there as we can, and see what we can end up getting rolling. Overall, Basilisk teams I do feel like are towards the slower side, similar to how most core Vash teams kind of are. They're generally played more towards the safer side, but tends to be a bit slower. So do be mindful of that if you're trying for quicker kills, as it's not necessarily the quickest of troops. Anything that will ever do one shot is generally towards the slower side anyways, compared to running full AoEs and other similar things, as hitting things one at a time is just slower. So unfortunately, we're not full mana here. We can go grab it if we so choose, and I'm kind of tempted to go for it. We'll also end up getting additional stun there, which will allow us to hit a wider range. So normally, for example, this would have 50% spell reduction, but of course with the stun that we just got, we will be able to hit through it. So we were probably going to want to go for that now. We do have 45 damage, so that would be more than enough to end up killing it. Even if we didn't have the double damage there, that still would have been enough. And with the double, it's way, way more than enough. So we'll go grab that. As you can see, we got a stun on hero. That'd be pretty good if we want to go kill it out. We are using Anu, so we can go for a full disable if we so choose and mana drain that, which I believe is the way we're going to go, just so we can skull poke to kill that out. And since I also applied to mana drain, we won't need to worry about it doing anything to us. So right here, we're going to go and probably Apothecary again, just so we can get another one of those hits. Try stunning out one of these other options so we can go get the one shot on them, since we wouldn't have had enough damage. Otherwise, for once, we actually get to use the extra damage that it has. So right here, if we so choose to kill out this last slot, you'll see that it'll end up doing the double. It only showed us 56 because, of course, it just did however much damage it needed to finish it off. But as you can see, it did end up doing the increased amount of damage there. And since both of these end up using green, we can end up going for a green right here just to get both of those poked. And then one more single true damage will end up killing it out. And even a skull at this point would also end up killing it out. So obviously, not the quickest of teams, but pretty safe. We have a 60% tank up here. We got everything gaining stats. We have a nice cleanse, so we don't even need to worry about stats effects. And of course, we have an instant kill option while also having an alternative disable. So have a lot of ground that we can end up covering. So right here, we ideally want to go for another green, just kind of go for that. Or really anything that can end up getting the hit. Probably easiest to try going for a skull at this point. Unfortunately, just end up giving it off the sky. But I guess we'll go for an Anu at this point and finishing it out that way. Seems to be the way to go. So let's move that over. Poke an Anu at it. And it still keeps finding those little pokes there. And of course, we get the skull after we don't even need it anymore. Well, we already have the other cast. But there we go. So that's kind of how you can use Basilisk. Not the quickest of options, but similar to Core Vash, it's a pretty safe thing to put into a team. It's kind of like a Famine or Core Vash. I feel like it's really similar to those in that it has a way to basically win slowly but safely, is basically what a Basilisk is. Stun is a very, very, very useful mechanic, especially if the enemy has a bunch of useful traits but no immunities to those stuns. And even if they do have immunities to those stuns, you can use Vash'Dagon on both the green overlap, or sorry, both on the blue overlap and the brown overlap. So you have both options if you so choose to want to use Vash'Dagon on it. Of course, I only showed it for one of them, but it does have enough color overlap that both are applicable. So you can get on both Brown Day and Blue Day now a stun curse with only 2 troops. And while it is quite a bit to dedicate 2 troops for that, you do get a one-shot out of it. And Vash'Dagon's ability generally isn't used too much. However, if you're using it with a High King Irongut, you can end up killing the High King Irongut out for quite a bit of damage. That does lower your points ever so slightly. However, it can pretty much instantly win the battle if you've already gotten 2 devours off your High King Irongut. So it's kind of like a last resort kind of thing that you could potentially do, or just speed up a battle if it feels like something bad could happen going forward. But overall, I'm actually a pretty big fan of Basilisk. Obviously, it's mostly Guild War option, but within Guild Wars, it seems like a really fun utility troop to bring out here and there. Anyways, other thing that's relevant this week, faction tomorrow. This is for Fang Moor faction. Of course, you do have access to blue, so why not? Let's go Far Stroll, Gobtruffle into Maraji Queen. Obviously, you can also run various for Wayne builds if you want for the lower end, but why not? Let's go Far Stroll. So obviously, this is using the other troll, not the one coming this Friday, but the normal standard Far Stroll to double the greens. This goes crazy with Truffle. The Truffles just keep spamming, and you have Maraji Queen to half mana start your entire team. You don't generally cast the Maraji Queen cast. However, if you find they have Submerge, you can simply convert all your greens to Doom Skulls, and then boom, you just killed whatever's in your sight. So it ends up working out pretty well. This variant doesn't use hero, but of course you can end up replacing out Maraji Queen for your hero and use it with something like Warden hero class if you so choose, or whatever other hero class you want or level. However, one of the main reasons for using it with Warden is it has Greenstorm plus the spell. The spell gets rid of Submerge, and Greenstorm helps Truffles out in order for them to have more green, and of course the doubling of the Far Stroll ends up having more green to work with. Anyways, for Pure Faction, easy to do it with Double Chief Dargon, Shaman Set, and Centauri. As long as you're using potions for this isn't really that hard of a faction for the most part. You can just buff up your attack to crazy high amounts and basically just kill it that way. And you basically just use this Shaman to gain a bunch of red for your entire team, and then use this as your skull spam option. Ends up working out pretty well. And yeah, as long as you're running with potion effects, it's I wouldn't say the easiest faction, but it has everything you basically need to be able to do it effectively. So it shouldn't be too much of an issue. If you're just doing like 2,000 or so gems or a little bit higher than that, the amount of potion effects you'll have is way more than enough to get done pure faction tomorrow, if you so choose to do that. Anyways, though it would be a little bit hard if you're trying it without it. Definitely not one of the easier ones to do that way. But with potion effects, it's definitely pretty straightforward. And other than that, Thursday class event, we have Assassin. So for this, you'll be restricted to specifically Nagas from Mists Scales. So for this, you can kind of go a Black Manacle build, go Black Manacles into triple Marilith. Pretty much any foil weapon into triple Marilith is essentially the way to go. And yeah, as long as you have that Fire Link on her, it goes up very, very quick your mana. You just keep spamming her, you'll get all the mana you need for your other weapon. You go Dawnbringer or something else as well. I just figured show it with show it with the Black Manacle since it's a little bit cheaper. And yeah, it just ends up working out pretty well. Kind of works a little bit similar to last week's actually with all the Wall of Tentacles. Kind of same premise, just a little bit different in that you're constantly destroying the board for your mana rather than constantly casting through a bunch of troops to cycle the mana through. But overall, should be a pretty straightforward, easy event, and you can run whatever hero class you want in first slot. However, if you're finding you're dying too much, you might want to consider a hero class that has Barrier over Brown, something like Titan. Otherwise, you could just use whatever hero class, and I just put Assassin there since it is indeed an Assassin event. Anyways, that's all the teams I have to really show at the moment. Of course, we will be messing around with some Guild War prep, as well as probably messing around with Basilisk tonight. And we stream every single night here on YouTube at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, so we'll be messing around with that then. If you have any other questions, feel free to leave it in the comment section below. Thank you all so much for watching, and have a wonderful day. Goodbye, everyone.